welcome to Just a Minute. My name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, it's my great pleasure to welcome you to this special edition of Just a Minute from BBC Television Centre. This year, Just a Minute turns 45, and as a special birthday treat, we've taken over your television screens. So without further ado, please welcome to the show four highly talented and charismatic performers. They are, seated on my right, Paul Merton and Shappi Khorsandi, and seated on my left, Hugh Bonneville and Jason Manford. Please welcome all four of them. The players will try to speak for just a minute on a subject that I give them, and they must try and do that without hesitation, repetition or deviation. The other three panellists can challenge at any time, and if I uphold the challenge, they gain a point and take over the subject. If not, the person speaking gains a point and keeps the subject. The person speaking, when the whistle goes, which tells us 60 seconds have elapsed, gains an extra point. And by the way, they can repeat the subject, which is on the card in front of me. Right, Shappi, can you talk on 60 seconds on this subject? When I met my hero. 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
When I met my hero, Nicholas Parsons, it was on this very programme. I stammered a little, stuttered a lot, and like all good heroes, he was kind to me. He held my hand and said, "Don't worry, you'll be okay at this game, Shappi. Just try to talk for 60 seconds without hesitating, deviating, or repeating stuff that you have said already." Also, like all heroes, he let me down a little bit. I soon found out he's not as tall as he appears to be. His name is not really Nicholas, but Balthazar.
Poor chance.
Repetition of Nicholas.
Yeah, repetition of Nicholas. What height do you think I am, Shappi?
Well, I'd never seen you stand up.
Do you want me to stand up now?
No, I mean, I'd heard you on the radio. On the radio, you sound much taller than you are. He does sound taller.
So, according to you, you have to be about 5'11" to be on the radio, do you?
No, 5'2½", my height.
Right. Paul, you challenged, what was it? A repetition of
Nicholas.
Of Nicholas, yes. Well, we can't have too much repetition of that, can we, really?
There's probably an upper limit.
I said that, and I wish I hadn't, really, because it didn't get much of a reaction. Paul, it is a correct challenge, and you have When I Met My Hero, that's the subject, 22 seconds starting now.
I interviewed Spike Milligan on a show I used to do called Room 10 Ditto First Figure, and it was an extraordinary moment for me because he was a hero of mine from childhood. I well remember the Goon Show, the Q series that he did, and to actually be sitting, talking to him, listening to the various things he'd like to consign to oblivion was a tremendously proud moment for me in my broadcasting career.
So that's it before. Whoever is speaking when the whistle goes gains an extra point. On this occasion, it was Paul Merton. So at the end of that round, he's not only in the lead, he's the only one who scored any points. Hugh Bonneville, will you begin the next round? Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And here's something which is up your street, costume drama. Can't imagine why they've chosen it for you. But will you talk, if you can, for 60 seconds on costume drama, starting now.
Picture, if you will, the scene of me starting out as a young spear bearer at one of our more prominent theatres. One night, I was performing in not a single play, but in fact two. So there I was in the dressing room, preparing to go...
Hesitation.
Well, no, it was... Was it?
It wasn't hesitation. There were one or two others that let go, Hugh, but...
They've been very kind. Come on, I'm a jam...
moment when we all let that go, the first hesitation.
Yes.
What was the first one?
He's a jam virgin, isn't he, Nicholas?
I'm a jam virgin.
He's a jam virgin.
Yes, he's a jam virgin.
He's a jam virgin.
Yeah.
But I think after the fourth one...
I don't know what it means, though.
No, Jason, we give it to you, because it was definitely hesitation. And you have a point for that, of course. There are 42 seconds available. Costume drama...
Better be good, son.
Threats. Costume drama starting now.
So I was performing in these two plays at this theatre in London when, after the show, somebody said to me, "You, my friend, should be performing stand-up comedy.
Repetition of performing.
Well, listen, yes.
Hey.
indeed.
Good work.
So, Hugh, you have your first correct challenge, and you have your first point, and you have 34 seconds, and you still have costume drama starting now.
Yerma is a play by Lorca. In this rather unlikely casting, I was a flamenco dancer. In the other auditorium, the Olivier, I was appearing as a Roman soldier, but both on the same evening. So, as a result, I had to finish my dance in one space, leg it up the stairs, flinging off my clothes and donning a Roman uniform.
Shappi
Is that
challenge.
repetition of Roman?
Yes.
I wasn't even entirely sure.
Shappi, a correct challenge. You have the subject, costume drama, 9 seconds, starting now.
Costume dramas are soap operas that are made palatable for middle-class people. If you take the plot line of Downton Abbey and compare it to, perhaps, EastEnders or that...
So, Shappi Khorsandi was speaking then with the whistle when gained that extra point. At the end of that round, she's equal with Paul Merton the lead, and Hugh Bonneville and Jason Manford are equal in second place. And Jason, we'd like you to begin the next round. A lovely subject. Bath time. Tell us something about bath time in this game, starting now.
Bath time in our house happens in the bathroom. It's a room dedicated for women.
Huge challenge.
Repetition of room.
Bathroom's one word, isn't it?
Bathroom's one word.
It is, yeah.
Yes, it is.
It is in our house.
You're like me, we couldn't afford hyphens when we were growing up. We didn't know what a hyphen was.
No, unfortunately, Hugh, it is
Okay.
one word. Right. So it's incorrect challenge, Jason. You have another point. You have bath time. You have 54 seconds starting now.
It's a female-orientated place with thousands of bottles what men don't even know what they're for. My wife could be a terrorist, for all I know, concocting whatever going on. I might find myself in court in a few years thinking, oh, I thought it was Timothy, Your Honour. I use the bathroom on a regular basis, usually once a day, to brush my teeth and actually have a shower. I bath the children, there's 3 of them. Very difficult to get 3 kids out of
The Shappi challenge.
Sorry.
3. No, don't apologise. It's a correct challenge. 3 kids. You can't get 3 in the bath. Right. Shappi, you were listening well. You came in first, and it's bath time with you now. Oh, how lovely. And...
He normally has a nurse assist him.
I love your innocent remarks. They get more and more innocent every time I come on the show.
Shappi, you have a correct challenge. You have 30 seconds to tell us something about bath time starting now.
Bath times are a glorious time in my household. I love them. My son, however, I can't say he enjoys them as much as me because at 4 he has no defence against my singing. I subject him to all sorts of vocal atrocities while he lies helpless in the water safely. I like to croon to my son, rubber-ducky, you're the...
Jason.
repetition of the word son.
Yes. Earlier on, you talked about your son.
You know, he's got such an amazing personality. I always think there's, like, more than one of him.
It was a correct challenge, so you have a point for that. And you have... Oh, you've got in with only 4 seconds to go.
And tonight's big prize... It's a caravan.
4 seconds, Jason. Tell us something about bath time starting now.
Blokes will use whatever product is nearest to them. My dad...
Paul
Did we
challenge.
have products before?
Yes, you talked about the products to the door.
Did I?
Yes.
I think I said bottles earlier.
You did?
Oh,
You're
yes,
right.
there we are. Yeah.
You said bottles. Well done. I'm glad you remembered.
See, I always presumed there was somebody in another room checking all this, but it's genuinely just you two, isn't it? Just working
So it was bottles, right? You were well done. So you have an incorrect challenge, Jason.
OK.
Another point to you. And you've still got 2 seconds. Bath time starting now.
Conditioner is one of those things that I've used...
So Jason Manford, your speakers are listening, gained an extra point for doing so. Paul, the subject here is a case of mistaken identity. 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
It was about 15 years ago. I came back home after recording of Have I Got News for You, and my then wife said to me, somebody's phoned and says there's going to be 8 pages in the Daily Mirror tomorrow about your habit. I said, well, what are you referring to? And the account on Have I Got News for You, I've said that, she said, just... I deviated in the boring stuff instead of carrying on.
I know, no.
They're always repeating Have I Got News for You, anyway.
Yeah. And many of the shows it spawned.
Yes.
Jason, you had a correct challenge, and you have a case of mistaken identity. 35 seconds available, starting now.
I very rarely get recognised. I get half recognised.
I think it's fully recognised.
It shows you what a difficult game it is.
It is, yeah.
Right.
But half recognised with a hyphen. Does that not count as...
No. Paul, a correct challenge.
Oh.
The case of mistaken identity, 32 seconds, starting now.
The following morning, I bought the newspaper in question, and Paul Merton, the Arsenal footballer, had a large number of issues devoted to him, so it was a case of mistaken identity, in case you were wondering why I suddenly confessed to some terrible incident.
Huge challenge.
Repetition of case.
It's on the card.
Oh, sorry.
I'll get my coat.
Yes, you can repeat the subject.
Yes,
or
yes,
any
I'm
of the
learning,
words in the
Nicholas, I'm
subject.
learning. Oh.
I know, but it's such a quick learning process, isn't it? So I'm afraid it was an incorrect challenge, so Paul has another point. He has 17 seconds, a case of mistaken identity, starting now.
When Rudolf Hess arrived in Scotland around about 1941 during the course of the Second World War, people believed at first it may not be him. They said, how can we be sure this is one of Hitler's deputies landed on our isles? What would be his reason for parachuting into us? And then somebody...
Shappi, challenge.
You breathed. That doesn't count as hesitation, does it?
Yeah, I did breathe. I think my heart beat a couple of times as well. Put me off a bit.
An incorrect challenge, and you have quarter of a second to go, Paul, on the case of mistaken identity, starting now.
You're Winston Churchill!
At the end of that round, Paul Merton was speaking as a whistle gained that extra point. He's now in the lead, just 2 ahead of Jason, and 4 or 5 ahead of Shappi Khorsandi, and a few more ahead of Hugh Bonneville. Shappi, we're back with you to begin. And the subject now is keeping it real. Tell us something about that phrase in this game, starting now.
Unless you're a pathological liar, I don't see any reason to not keep it real. But keeping it real has become common parlance, meaning being down to earth. It's a term celebrities often use to pretend that becoming a millionaire and living far away from where they grew up doesn't matter, and they're still happy to get on the bus if they really had to. Jennifer Lopez, for example, wrote a song, Jenny from the Block, where she explained to the people that lived on her estate that although she might have more money than she used to have, she's exactly the same personage as she was before. She keeps it real. Often, young people keep it real where they have no reason to, because they...
Right, oh, Hugh. You challenge, why?
Because you told me to. It was repetition of...
No, she deviated.
She deviated. I've made a paper plane, that's deviation.
The personage, she said.
Yes, personage. What, are you not allowed to use foreign sort of emphases?
Not even sure that's foreign.
It's foreign. It's an adulteration of English as we understand it.
Yeah.
So that is deviation.
OK, I couldn't agree more. That's exactly what I
I'm glad you picked it up so quickly.
I did. You're very good. I was hot on that.
That's good, man.
It's my second language, so...
What, personage?
No. Trying to get out of it.
Hugh, you have another point. You have 13 seconds. Tell us something about keeping it real, starting now.
The last time I was fishing, I had a particular reel in my bag that I thought was a fake one. And...
Shappi, challenge.
It's clearly not that kind of reel. That's a deviation.
No, it can be whatever reel you like. Well, if you had to say, according to how things are spelt, you know, we'd be here all night.
So it's that reel. Right. In this case, I apologise.
Yes, right.
Well, if I'd got to the end of the sentence, you might have discovered what I was going to say. Ah. You see? Oh. You see?
You're not in character now, Hugh.
Hugh, you have 6 more seconds to tell us something about keeping it real starting now.
And my companion said, no, I think that is a real reel. He was full of puns, Mike.
Right. Hugh, you were speaking as the whistle went, and you gained that extra point. And the situation now is, you're still in 4th place. But you're moving forward. No, you're not. You're in 3rd place. Shappi's one behind you. View to begin the next round. Oh, a lovely subject. I don't know if it's up your street or not. Salvador Dalí. Do you know much about him? If not, try. And this game, starting now.
I've always been impressed by surrealists. And Salvador Dalí, with his extraordinary moustache, is, of course, one of the foremost of this particular...
Shappi Jones.
Hesitation.
There's a definite hesitation. So, Shappi, you have 49 seconds to tell us something about Salvador Dalí starting now.
I know a fascinating fact about Salvador Dalí. He had a brother, also called Salvador, who died before he was born. So they called their second child Salvador. And when the Salvador that we know, the artist, was 5, they took him to the first sibling's grave and said, "You're a reincarnation of this child." No wonder he went bonkers.
Jason, you've
Repetition of the word child.
Yes, you talked about child, yes. So, Jason, well listened. And you're getting the hang of this game, aren't you, now? And you have another correct challenge. 27 seconds are available. Salvador Dalí, starting now.
I've never been a big fan of Salvador Dalí. I much prefer the work of Rolf Harris. And maybe even Neil Buchanan off of ITV's Art Attack from when I was a child. I don't really like art in general. I think most of it is a tiny bit pretentious, and I've occasionally put something on my wall of a picture maybe that the child is...
Paul Challenge.
Well, we're not really on the subject of Salvador Dalí. We've moved off. We haven't mentioned Salvador for some time. We've had Rolf Harris.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's a correct challenge. You have gone off into art in general and not Salvador Dalí in particular.
I was going to come back to Salvador Dalí because I've got a few facts about him, but...
It's a shame this show isn't called Just an Hour, isn't it? It's a shame. It is a shame. It's a shame.
We give the benefit of the doubt to Paul, and if I can redress the balance, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt sometimes.
Yes, he will,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And there are 8 seconds still, Paul.
How many?
8 seconds.
Oh, right.
Salvador Dalí starting now.
Salvador Dalí was hired by Alfred Hitchcock to do the dream sequences for Spellbound, and what a fantastic movie it was. Salvador got hold of the huge concept.
Right. And so Paul Merton was then speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point, and he has increased his lead at the end of the round. Jason Manford's following, just a few points behind, and then equal in 3rd place are Hugh Bonneville and Shappi Khorsandi. And Jason, we're back with you to begin, and the subject now is going to the cinema. 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
I'm not a massive fan of the cinema. I don't like sharing the experience with...
Well, you wouldn't like Spellbound. You've got Salvador Dalí in it, and it's also a film. So don't go and see that, whatever you do. Handing out tips.
Yeah, it was quite good.
It wasn't that good, was it?
No, it wasn't worth a bonus point.
No, I said it as if it was good.
Jason, an incorrect challenge. You still have the subject. 56 seconds available, starting now.
The thing with the cinema is it's a lot of people, and I don't really enjoy the whole experience of sharing this thing on the screen. What I find...
I'm really sorry, but you said sharing. You don't like sharing things
Yes,
earlier.
you didn't like sharing before.
I still don't.
If you don't like going to cinema and sharing the experience with all those people there, how do you feel about this lot here?
Yeah, I don't like it, you're right.
Shappi, you had a correct challenge. You have the subject of going to the cinema. 46 seconds, starting now.
I don't like going to the cinema because it makes me into the type of person that I don't wish to be. I become the person that hates tall people.
Hugh, you challenged.
Repetition of person.
Yeah, well listened to you. Yes.
I'm really into persons this evening.
Yes, a repetition of person will listen to you, and you have 36 seconds. You tell us something about going to the cinema, starting now.
One of my earliest memories of going to the cinema was the ABC in Lewisham, on the high road there. And this particular occasion, there was a James Bond film, and I was always fascinated by this particular brand of movie. It was an A, as far as I was concerned, which meant that my elder brothers and sisters could, in fact, take me with them. I was about 8 at the time, you see, and they said that they couldn't take me because it was, in fact, a double version of that letter that I mentioned. And in the old system, of course, that meant you had to be 14 and over. And my siblings were not prepared to...
So Hugh Bonneville kept going till the whistle went, gained that extra point. And he has moved forward. He's still in third place, but he's moved. And Paul, there's only 1 point between them all. Paul, the subject, the Fifth Beatle. Tell us something about that fascinating subject, starting now.
Candidates for the Fifth Beatle over the years have included Brian Epstein, the manager, George Martin, the producer. There was a gentleman called Stuart Sutcliffe, who was also in the Beatles when they played Hamburg, so he has a claim to that title. The Fifth Beatle. If we look at the people that were instrumental in the success, and no pun intended, of the aforementioned pop-beat combo, they were indeed lucky with the people they were surrounded by. Of course, there was an innate talent within the quartet themselves, but without the right handling and management, that alone is not enough. When we look at the magnificent recorded legacy of those 4 guys from Liverpool, we realise that we were listening to great musical genius that we have very rarely...
Shappi, you challenged.
I wouldn't say genius. I'm not a massive fan.
Of the Beatles?
You're not touring Liverpool anytime soon, are you?
I didn't realise it was a controversial stance to take, that the Beatles were quite good at pop songs.
No, I think everybody would accept the Beatles. I mean, they are.
I'm not saying I don't accept them. I'm not saying that they should be struck off history, but it's just the way Paul was saying their genius, I felt like he was speaking for everyone in the room, and I just wanted to say that I enjoy bopping to them in my kitchen, but I don't think they were genii.
I think there's a long, involved and rather ridiculous explanation of why you challenged. So, Shappi, Paul had an incorrect challenge. He keeps the subject, the Fifth Beatle. 15 seconds, Paul, starting now.
If we look at the legacy of that group...
Yes, Jason.
Repetition of legacy.
You had the legacy before,
Yeah, it's
yes.
a long time ago, I couldn't remember.
So, Jason, a correct challenge, 13 seconds still available. The Fifth Beatle, starting now.
John, Paul, Ringo, George, they were the 4. Who is the 5th Beatle? Pete, Michael, Johnny, Phil.
Paul challenge.
Who was Michael?
Michael, he was a neighbour of John Lennon's.
He was a roadie. Wasn't he a roadie?
It wasn't Michael, anyway.
I know it wasn't.
Yeah,
Right.
It wasn't Michael. No.
Paul, you have another point, and you have 3 seconds to go on the Fifth Beatle, starting now.
What a load of rubbish. They couldn't write a decent hit between them. I don't know why people listen to the Beatles. They're nonsense.
So Paul Merton was then speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point. He has increased his lead at the end of that round. He's just ahead of Jason Manford, and then it's Hugh Bonneville and Shappi Khorsandi in that order. And Shappi, we'd like you to begin the next round. The subject here is cats or dogs. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
Cats or dogs? I have both. My cat keeps it real. My dog is a drama queen. People say to me, which one do you prefer? I say I love both of them equally as I cuddle my cat and kick the dog. I do enjoy the dog. He's a mixed breed, although he prefers dual heritage. What I enjoy about cats is that they are independent. My cat will go roaming for days on end, stagger through the cat flap at all hours, eyes all kaleidoscopy, and I will dare to ask where Madam has been, and like a recalcitrant teenager, she will go, what, I was out, what of it? And march off to her room and listen to her music.
Paul challenge.
Repetition of what?
Yes.
I'm surprised no one came in quicker.
No.
Paul, you got in with 14 seconds.
Are we letting the fact that she kicks her dog go? Is that fine? Is that fine?
Dog's a Beatles fan, and you've never really forgiven her. Eleanor Rigby, go and get out.
No, I would have given it to you on that, because I
Yeah.
think that's deviation, kicking your dog.
OK.
Right. Paul.
Yes.
Correct challenge. 14 seconds. Cats or dogs starting now.
Well, if we look at the various characters of two species of animals, we see that cats are independent and dogs help the police. So I think it's very obvious out of these two particular kinds of creature which one I prefer. It is...
We enjoy it when you slip into one of your character voices.
Yes, it worried me. I don't know what that sounded like.
It sounded a little bit like Alec Guinness.
Yes.
But you were speaking of the whistle when
Yes.
gained that extra point, have increased your lead, and Hugh Bonneville, we're back with you to begin. Now, the subject... It's a little bell which tells me we have time for only one more round. Oh, you are lovely. Right, one more round. Let me give you the situation as we go into the final round. Paul Merton is still in the lead. He's about 4 or 5 points ahead of Jason Manford, who's in a very strong second place. Then it's Hugh Bonneville and Shappi Khorsandi in that order. And Hugh Bonneville, we're back with you to begin. And the subject is the local pub. Tell us something about that in this game starting now.
The local pub, I think, is a state of mind as much as it is a physical entity. The first time I entered my local pub, I was short-changed. This happened not once, but 3 times in the period that the landlord owned the property. I'm happy to say that he has moved on, hopefully to a pub in the sky. But, in fact, now the pub is a beautiful environment to visit where I live. It is run by...
Jason, you challenge first.
Hesitation.
Yeah, we call that hesitation. So you went for 32 seconds, though.
Good, very good.
I mean...
I get a point for that. Thank you!
So, Jason, correct challenge, hesitation, and you have 28 seconds are still available. The local pub starting now.
My local pub is the roughest place you have ever been to in your life. It's on the corner of an estate, a lawless place with...
Yes, Shappi.
With a
hesitation,
yeah,
yes.
with a hesitation.
So, Shappi, we're going to hear from you as well on the local pub, and 23 seconds are still available, starting now.
The local pub is a cosy place where everyone knows your name and no one minds that you've been in there all night as long as you get the drinks in. And hardly anyone bats an eyelash that your wife and children are at home waiting for you and you are drinking the money that probably should have been used for food for the said family members. But that's okay because you're holding court in the local pub and you're a card and you're a...
So, Shappi Khorsandi was there speaking as the whistle went and brought this show to a wonderful climax in great style and panache. And she's now equal in 3rd place with Hugh Bonneville and did very, very well. Congratulations, Hugh.
Thank you.
And, but you were 3 points behind Jason Manford, and Jason was 5 points behind Paul Merton. So we say, Paul, you are our winner today. So it only remains for me to say thank you. A final thank you to these 4 fine players of the game. And it's goodbye from this delightful audience here at the Television Centre. It's goodbye from me, Nicholas Parsons. Do join us the next time we play Just a Minute. Yes.
Having a bath, whistling and spending time with Jenny Agutter. Not at the same time, Ed Reardon's Actually Happy. It won't last on Radio 4 now. Next year on BBC 2, a firm of solicitors lay down the law. The eggheads follow in a moment.